going around. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. So Joanna Bruto-Klein. I'm a researcher on environment and climate at COPRD, which is a French think tank on working on humanitarian crises. And I'm also the coordinator of the REH, the Réseau Environnement Humanitaire, which is hosting this session today. So thank you for putting in the chat who you are. And Camille, I'm going to let yourself introduce. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, sorry.
Thanks, Joanna. So hi, everyone. I'm Camille Théron. I am the project manager for environmental action at HI, so Handicap International, Humanity and Inclusion. And I'm part of the I don't know how the piloting committee of the REH. And facilitator of the carbon working group within the network. And so this is what we are here to tell you all about today.
I think we can start anyways. This is recorded, so we can always upload it online. And also we booked an hour and a half. It's not going to last an hour and a half, just so you know. So I think you should be able to see my slides, but just a few words to introduce the REH, which is hosting the session today. Well, the Carbon Working Group is hosting the session today, but it's part of the REH. So the REH is the Réseau Environnement Humanitaire, or humanitarian environmental network. And it's a group of Francophone humanitarians and development workers who work together to reduce the environmental footprint of aid. We have over 250 members, including 30 organizations. These organizations don't have to be French or Francophone. These can be international organizations, but they just have one person in particular that is Francophone that represents them within the network. But then you can also take part in the different working groups. Speaking of the working groups, so we have 4 working groups to operationalize the whole of network. We have one specifically on waste management, and they will also be holding a session on Thursday afternoon to present the work that they're doing. We have one on sustainable procurement, and this one will hold a session on Thursday morning, and I'm going to put all the links afterwards if you're interested in joining any of these sessions. We have another one on environmental assessments. They're holding the session this afternoon, and then this one is the carbon one. And so I'm going to let Camille introduce the working group.
So within the REH, the carbon working group was the first to sort of coalesce into a specific group, like as Joanna was saying, with the aim to really go from sharing of information to like really working together on concrete actions. So we've been in activity since 2021, and it started as a consortium of organizations. So there were 9 NGOs who built a consortium with the goal to kickstart their carbon footprint assessment. And so basically hire consultants together and do the work of deciding what we were gonna count within our carbon footprint and how we were gonna go about it, and basically, you know, working out the kinks and answering all the difficult questions that you have to answer when you're starting on the carbon footprint journey together as a group instead of individually, everybody in their own organization. And so that grew into a wider collaboration with other groups and networks. So for example, in 2022, we participated in the development of the HCC, by which I mean that we gave feedback, and we some of the organizations were piloting the tool. Obviously, the development of the HCC, so Humanitarian Carbon Calculator, was led by the ICRC. And then we also have organizations within this working group who are participating and collaborating within the sessions organized by the REC on the scope 3 assessment of the logistic, like the footprint of what we buy and how we buy it and what we transport. So we're trying to reach out and to collaborate with other groups. And obviously, like if you know of networks or other group of organizations that are working on similar topics, please don't hesitate to share. This is like why I'm mentioning it. Because we are French-speaking originally, we tend to be very aware of all of the French networks, less so of other English-speaking networks. And so if you know of any and you don't have like the organization listed at the bottom of the slide, members of those groups, then don't hesitate to invite us. We're always happy to collaborate and exchange with more organizations. And since 2023, so since last year, we've extended. So the original purpose of the working group was done, more or less. Like most of the original organization have completed their first carbon footprint assessments, and we then moved on to a welcoming new organization in the group, and then redefining and widening the purpose of the working group. And I won't go into the detail of the 3 sub-working group, but because, as you can see, there's quite a few of us now in the group. There's 13 organizations, and so you can't work with 13 organizations on one single topic and hope to be efficient. And so we've chosen to divide ourselves into 3 sub-working groups, working on 3 different topics. So building action guides to help give practical tips for decarbonizing actions. We're working on a specialist sensitivity awareness workshop, specifically for the aid sector. And we still have a group working on carbon footprint related stuff, like really the technical issues. And so I'll go into more detail on each of those working groups later, and we'll have as well time to exchange, like if you have questions or remarks or suggestions. And that's really the purpose of today's presentation.
Thank you, Camille.
Yeah.
So we did a little slide. I mean, there's not all of us in the room, so you can always just say say where you're joining us from in the chat or in person. I personally am in Paris, France, but actually the place I work for is in the south of France. And Camille, I think you're in Lyon, right?
Yes.
So
not that far from Geneva, but
that's true. Oh yeah, so maybe some of you guys might be in Geneva actually. So actually, I don't know if it's working for you. Oh yeah, no, sorry, you have to join the Slido. Or you can just put it in the chat. I see that, Paul, you're writing. So that might be what you're doing. It's just to get to know the room a little bit better.
And yeah, as Joanna was saying, there's like not that many of us today, so don't hesitate as well to. I think you're probably able to just.
Yeah, you can just put it in the chat. Thank you. Camille, maybe you want to answer the question, like
yeah,
Paul's question,
so basically, like this is a very good and very complex question. So usually we have organization, like many organizations are part of multiple groups, and we do make a deliberate effort to reach out to other groups. And so to make sure that we're not working on the exact same thing at the exact same time, because that would be just a waste of everybody's time and resources. So for example, with the break, since they've started working specifically on everything more related to the supply chain and the procurement, like for us, as we are focusing, like we take that into consideration, and then in our sub-working groups, we sort of excluded that area of specific work for the sub-working groups so that we wouldn't overlap. And then, as I said, since some of our organizations are in both networks, we try to keep each other informed, and we ask those people to also build a link, similar with the CAA, where they have their own working groups, and actually at the end of 2023. We reach out specifically to the CA and the organization that we're working with them to let them know about what we were doing and the kind of actions that we were planning on doing. And at that time, we were, as I said, like rethinking, or not rethinking, but like thinking again, thinking about the evolution of the purpose of the working group. And so we invited them to participate in the brainstorming session, and so, so that we would have their inputs as well on what they're doing and what we should do that would be complementary. And so the group now, like you can see actually that the CAA, we have like a member of the CAA that's joining the working group. And then we have 3 organizations, so MSF, Terre des Hommes, and I can't remember like the third one, Alima.
Alima, yeah.
Alima. It's hidden behind your name, Joanna. Who are in my team's window, who are working with the CAA and now also active members of the ROH working group. And so this allows us to make sure that, we are aware, like everybody's aware of what everybody's doing. I think at this time, we are not specifically working together on specific topics. But for example, on the workshop, like we have started working on this specialized workshop, and we have reached out, like we knew that there was another network of development organization that was also looking at that. And so we are now working together on this. So there are some specific topics where we might, join forces with another network, again, to avoid duplicating work. But that's why as well it's important, and I hope people will at least watch the replay if they couldn't attend today, but important for you guys to also let us know, because we don't know what we don't know, and if there are working groups out there that we are not aware of working on things, then it would be great to know each other.
And in general, that's kind of an issue that we have at the RH, overall. And so we try really hard, especially with the comms people, to have links so that we're aware of what they're relaunching and what they're working on before they start launching it. And so we often have coordination calls. I often have those with the different networks so that we're aware of what everybody is doing. And so if there's an activity that might be overlapping, so that we can really know this from the start as well. Oh, hey, thank you for putting on your camera. Okay,
I see Paul is writing, but we can maybe move on to.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna switch over to the part, because I think we get to know. Oh, Paul, sorry, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I thought maybe easier as well with a very small group. I had to turn on the camera. No, because it's for us at Feed Forum, as you know, we are working on very specific, specialized topics where you're working on, and where REC is working on, and where CEA is working on, and specifically related to, let's say, sustainability of fleet. So I think it would be good to sort of have a discussion with you as well, bilateral, to see, okay, how indeed do we prevent overlap? Because before, well, just in the REC meeting, you also saw that there's some topics that you will present, so probably as well, and we're trying to work now with the CEA as well. And so it's really, where do we prevent the overlap and where we can really force each other's activity? So Yeah. So I will come back to you, let's say, and have a follow-up discussion on this specific topic. Yeah.
Yeah, very gladly. And you know, that's also like organization like Fleet Forum is maybe, you know, organizations that are able to see those different connections maybe easier than us, because on those specific topics, you will probably be contacted by all of us.
Exactly.
And then, you know, never hesitate to just bring us all into like a representative of each group into a room, to say, like a virtual room, but to say, okay, guys, like you're all working on the same thing, please coordinate and we'll like all work together. And I think on this specific topic, on the environmental improvements and everything, like what I see is like, I know anyway the humanitarian and development world tends to cooperate a lot on a lot of topics. But on this specifically, I think because we're all trying to ramp up the knowledge and the capacity and the skills that we have, and go very fast from almost nothing to like a decarbonized green aid. We don't have like, there's barely any competition really. We are just like all mostly happy to collaborate and exchange a lot of information to make things happen faster. So.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Thanks, Kevin.
May I just say, Cyril is very active within the RH. So he's, just to highlight that as well, because we talk with him a lot, but don't hesitate, if there's anything that we miss. We also try to share as much as we can what the Fleet Forum does on the RH platform and social media.
Yeah.
So that we are aware of what happens. But the issue is not once it's out, it's before, so that we don't overlap.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue, that we don't, set up project where we develop specific, whether it's tools or platforms, whatever, and then the moment we launch it, we say, oh, actually, we actually do the same. So that's the yeah. Okay, thanks again.
So maybe to go into a bit more detail on specifically what we're doing on the working group. So typically action guides. So I didn't know how to translate that in English. It's really just like sort of a summary of guidance on specific actions. And so that's something where we are very aware that many organizations and many networks are working on similar tools. And so we are trying to keep like check what's published and what's happening, and try to communicate with those other networks, so that we are not all publishing like different but very similar probably guidance on the same actions. And like the reason why we started this sub action group working group is that organizations are joining the carbon working group for different reasons. There are some that are that want to work on their carbon footprint and are looking for help and guidance. And there are some that are too small, or maybe that don't have the resource yet, and they're coming and they're like, okay, I don't have my carbon footprint, I don't have the resources to work on it in the coming year or so. That doesn't mean that I don't want to reduce my carbon footprint. And so, like, tell me, like, you have done your assessments, and, maybe you already have identified actions that would work for you, and I'll just assume that those actions will work for me as well, and skip straight to actions. And so for those, we think it would be very helpful to have a bit more technical information, like key steps for implementations, for if you're trying to put in place a specific action. And I'll take an example that doesn't actually come from this working group, but like on waste management, for example, like everybody knows that we have to manage waste, but it's much more useful if you get an action guidance that tells you, okay, like the first thing you do is you list all the waste that you produce, and then you will go, and for this type of waste, they are handled by recycling industries together, and so you can go and look for those type of industries. And then once you've assessed them, like, here's a list of questions that you can ask them as the recycling companies, so that you understand whether they're good recycling companies or not. And that's a lot more useful than just telling someone, oh, you should try to recycle. So this is what we want to do on other type of actions that are more specifically carbon related, and we've just started, which is why I gave an example that's coming from the waste working group. But we are trying to build on or follow their example and be as specific as we can be with a really tools and examples and maybe even budget. That's something that we have added to the list of our want to have in those guides, because a big questions that come up as well is how do you finance your reduction actions? And most of us often don't even really know how much it's going to cost. Or where are the costs going to come from? Is it only HR, or do you actually need to pay for again, for example, your waste collecting or whatever? And so we will try to include that as well, so that maybe organizations that don't have any budget can also select or start with the actions that will not they will not ever be able to finance. And so, as I said, so we are deciding collectively on which actions to cover, and we're trying to be as aware as possible of similar work that's being done by other networks, so that we can avoid duplicating work. And right now, this sub-working group is working on flights, because that's one of the things that comes up first in many cases, and so that's more targeted toward the headquarters. So how to reduce the number of flights that we take, and again, we are trying, not just to say, okay, you should reduce your flights, but also give examples of how organizations have what type of discussions they've had, how they've had that discussion, how they've set up, is it which kind of KPI do they use, and socially, we know it's a very sensitive topic, so we're trying to give examples and tools from other organizations on that. So this is ongoing work. Yeah, I don't know, if you have any comments, requests, if you know of any networks that's not the CAA or the REC working on similar things that you can share with us. And, or if you think of again, once you know that we are working on this, if you have any specific actions where you're thinking, this would be very useful, then we are open to suggestions. Not a guarantee that we'll cover it, but it's the goal of those tools is also that they should be published and not just kept for within the ROH and the carbon working group. And so even organizations that are not part of the working group, I get a say on or at least a option for suggestions on what we are working on. All right. If there's no remarks or questions on that. So the second working group is working on a tailored workshop. I don't know if you are familiar, most of our organization in the French community are using two workshops that have been created by French associations, but are now translated into English and many other languages sometimes, and widely used, but very quite well known now in France. And those are the Climate Fresque and the 2 Tons workshop that focus on the climate science for the first one, and then actions for the second one. But as we moved from headquarters to field level awareness actions and all of that, we ran into the issue that so our emissions in the NGO sector come mostly from field activities, and in our countries of operation, the emissions level, like historical and current, are not very high. And those tools, like the tools that were built, they're usually, so the ones that we use, they're French built, and so they're used to focusing on French or at least like high emitting countries. And with the aim of getting individuals to think about their own footprint as well. And that's not something that's very relevant for most of our countries of operation. And the I don't know how to say that, like awareness raising that we want to do for in our countries of operation, we want to focus on the footprint of the organization itself and not the footprint of the individual employees that are working in the organization. So we're like, the workshops that we do in France, for example, for our headquarters employees, are also telling, like, or at least teaching them about how they can reduce their own personal footprint at home, which is not something that we're aiming to do for our field of countries of operation. And so, and obviously we all know that the humanitarian contexts especially come with a whole set of challenges that are very specific to our modalities of operation, and that limit our type of actions. And so basically what we said is like, okay, those workshops are working really, really well for awareness raising in our headquarters. And so we need a specific one, like another one that we will develop ourselves, and that will be really meant to be used for countries of operation, for our field activities, and help our employees get a sense of where our emissions are coming from, and then participate and think about how to reduce them. And so we want to, like, the purpose of the working group is to develop that tool, and then also provide or build all the supporting materials that will allow facilitation to be done by even someone who is not an environmental specialist, so that the tool can be widely used. And so, yeah, next slide. So right now we are using as a base a tool that was that's called Mater, so My Earth, and that was developed by the French public research agency. So it's in the public domain in France, and it's an online platform where you can pre-build the footprint of your organization. So what you see here is a workshop that I facilitated for our team in the Chad, in Jamena, and so you can basically like, it's a role-playing game. So you have people that have like functions in the organization. So we had like a logistic manager, we had like project managers and technical specialists, and we allocate our organization's emissions to them, and then to those like fictional characters, and then get a team of real life people to pretend to be those characters, and then try and reduce emissions. And so the tool is very flexible. It allows basically any type of action to be proposed. And so that's the list that you see on the right side of the little picture. And then for every action, you then can just remove some of the emissions and get a sort of live assessment of the impact of the action that you have chosen. So if you say, okay, I don't know, I will only, from now on, I will travel together with that other, I don't know, project manager to the field, so that, we maximize the use of cars. And so we will basically use twice as, less cars. we reduce the number of kilometers by 2 because we are 2 sharing the car. And then you can very easily go to those kilometers on your assessment, divide by 2, and then you will see immediately, this is like 3 tons or 5 tons or 15 tons. And so it's very dynamic, and it's really like a great tool to help people realize, like, maybe the different impact of the actions that they can take, and like, get the message across as well that, for example, energy is not the end of all actions. Like once you put solar panels, you've reduced those like little like you can see the in the center of the picture you have those little like flames in the squares, and so that's energy. And if you reduce that, well, okay, but you still have the rest of it on the table, and so you need to keep acting. So right now we have like the first draft of this workshop, and we are really working on building all the facilitation material, because right now you need someone who knows the impact of different things to do the live assessment thing. And so we want to provide aids so that basically anyone could facilitate that. So again, like if you have interest in that, if you're interested in testing, trialing, or participating, or if you have any kind of suggestions on it, we are open and happy to collaborate. The idea is really that this tool should be used as widely as possible and be as useful as possible to everyone. So yeah, so don't hesitate if you are interested to send us an email.
And Camille, if I can just say something, I think this workshop that you've organized for your teams in Chad, you did it remotely. So it was online and you did it remotely, right?
Yes. So the way we managed is that I did it remotely for a group of people, like they were all in the same room, but then I was like still in France. And then that group of people then facilitated, so we organized the wider sessions where they were facilitating the discussions physically for a group of people all in the same room, and I was providing sort of technical support from a distance. So that's why we are experimenting with facilitation options. So right now this still requires sort of me to be there, but like the second workshop we had 20 participants, and the participants of the first workshop were able to facilitate the discussion with my support. So we are hoping that with the tools that we are putting in place, they might not even need me in the future. Because we really think that, often getting as many people as possible to think about how to reduce, is really the only way that we will manage to get meaningful reductions, because many of the actions that seem even easy on the surface, like what I was saying before, if we're traveling to the same area around the same time, we'll travel together. But I mean, it depends on countries and organizations, I'm sure. But like in my organization, we have some countries where people are very used to just scheduling their trips to the field independently of other other projects, and so they might not, like, if no one is if they're not thinking about it as they're scheduling the trip, and they don't think to reach out, or they don't have a tool that helps them identify if other teams are traveling to the same region, maybe a day or two before or after, and then they are, they accept to maybe change the date of their trips by 1 or 2 days so that they can travel together. Like, it seems very easy on paper. The reality of it needs a bit of coordination and help. And so we need as many people as possible to be aware of that, so that then, they can build those tools and do that coordination. And So at the field offices, like, so I've done it for the Chad team only, and in HI we've put the reduction target in our sort of strategic plans, and so like we've done that like a year ago, and since then nothing has happened. So so those kind of workshops are sort of like people are now they know that they have to do something, and they've spent a year like not knowing what to do, and so I would say that on that sense, at least it tells them, like it gives them options, and it helps them think about like what they could actually be doing, other than just, you know, writing a line on their strategic plan to say we will do something to reduce emissions. And obviously we have some, like, I think there's a bit of pushback from some people on like the potential impact on our operations. And so that's why as well we focus a lot on, you know, improvements within our current operations. So we are not impacting, like we're not lowering the quality of aid, or we're not delivering less aid. But there are some improvements, like, you know, the traveling 2 days later with someone else in your car will not impact the quality of aid that you are delivering. And so I think people are mostly very receptive to this. And we've had, like in HI, we've run a survey at the beginning of the year where we had about 25% of the organization responding. So we got over 1,000 replies, and across our like all of our countries of operations. And we had, like, I would say 80% of field staff that were saying, okay, yes, we need to reduce, just tell us what to do. Like, you know, we need more, like, we don't have the resources and time to like figure everything out by ourselves. So we need you to give us those kind of like tools and trainings and targets. So I think, yeah, field staff are, like, field offices are quite receptive, like definitely in a context where, you know, if the alternative is we are giving them a target, but not the tools to achieve it. So. So yeah, last working group. So it's a bit more blurry in terms of specific targets for this one. But basically, when we did the review and brainstorming at the end of 2023 about what we wanted to do with the working group, there were a number of organizations that were still in the process of calculating their carbon footprint. And so they still needed those support and technical discussions, and, you know, sharing of information to answer challenges or problems that they had. And then those of us, so for example, HI did the first assessment in 2022, but we are now in the process of updating it. And that comes with a whole lot of new questions. Like, how do I compare my new footprints to the previous one? How do I track the impact of the actions that I maybe put in place, and all of that? And so we all agreed that basically we still needed this peer-to-peer discussions and technical support. And so this working group is working on, like, specifically trying to share and like co-build tools for the monitoring of actions. So for now, they've also started with flights and procurement, because those are the first, like, again, the first two things that you do usually. But also providing the space for those discussions and those peer-to-peer discussions on technical difficulties. Like, I don't know if you've actually, you know, started on your carbon footprint assessment and how far you went, but like very, very early in the process, you start having all of those questions about how do I count that? How do I measure that? What's the best emission factor for this? and all of that. And it's really very helpful to have space where you can ask colleagues in other organizations to let you know how they answered those questions for themselves. And that's it. So that was the third sub-working group. And basically we are like, the way we are thinking is like, as if some of those working, like once the workshop is done, then the organization that we're working on that will like figure out a new topic to work on, and we'll keep those working groups like sort of active and evolve the purpose.
Because I think you're also constantly looking out like how the working groups are going, how if the members of the working group are happy with what's going on, because it's very much up to the people what they want to be working on. So I think it's also it can like new topics can emerge and new ways of working can also emerge, I think.
And this network, so we have so I don't know if you like talked about how we are financed, but we're not very financed. Like we have some financing that help us do the coordination, and so that's mostly paying for Joanna. And then the rest of us, we are just environmental specialists in our own organizations, getting together and working on things that are useful to us. So if they're not useful to us, then